The Voluntary Empire had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Their warships moved through space like dark clouds, and every planet they touched became theirs. No one had ever told them no. No one had ever fought back and lived. The 7 princes of the Empire, sons of Emperor Zoroth the Eternal, commanded fleets so large that entire star systems went dark when they passed by. Prince Kelver was the 3rd son. He was tall, with scales the color of deep water and eyes that had seen 100 worlds burn. He sat in his throne room on the palace ship when his officers brought him the news. A strange vessel had been detected near the border world of Thesan 4. It was small. It was slow. It had no weapons that their sensors could find. "What kind of ship is it?" Kelver asked. "Unknown design, my prince. The creatures inside call themselves humans. We have never seen their kind before." Kelver waved his long fingers in dismissal. "Send 1 cruiser. Capture them. I want to see what these humans look like before we add their worlds to our empire." The cruiser Void Fang was sent to intercept the strange vessel. Its captain was a decorated officer named Threll, who had conquered 6 planets in his career. He expected this mission to take less than an hour. The human ship was called the Horizon. It was an exploration vessel, built not for war, but for discovery. Its hull was scratched and dented from years of travel through asteroid fields and radiation storms. Inside, 23 humans lived and worked together. They had been away from Earth for 80 months, mapping stars that no human had ever seen. Captain Daniel Ortiz stood on the bridge when the alien ship appeared. He was 42 years old, with tired eyes and steady hands. He had served in the Space Corps for 20 years before taking this mission. He had wanted to see what was out there. He had wanted to find something new. "Sir, unknown vessel approaching," said Ben Castellan, the navigator. Ben was young, only 26, with red hair and a quick mind for numbers. "It is big. Very big." Daniel looked at the screen. The alien ship was 10 times the size of the Horizon. Its hull was covered in strange symbols, and weapons ports lined its sides like the teeth of some great beast. "They are hailing us," said Communications Officer Maria Santos. She was a calm woman who never raised her voice, even now. "Put them through," Daniel said. The screen flickered, and then they saw their first alien. It was tall and covered in dark scales. Its eyes were yellow, and when it spoke, its voice was cold. "You are in voluntary space. Your vessel and crew now belong to the Empire. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resist, and you will be destroyed." The bridge went silent. Everyone looked at Daniel. He could feel their fear, but he could also feel something else. These were his people. They had trusted him with their lives. Daniel leaned forward. "My name is Captain Daniel Ortiz of the exploration vessel Horizon. We are peaceful travelers. We did not know this was your space. Perhaps we could talk about this over a meal?" The alien captain stared at him. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. "You do not understand. There is no talk. There is only obedience or death." Daniel nodded slowly. "I understand what you are saying, but I must decline your offer. We are not property. We are people, and we would like to continue on our way." In his palace, Prince Kelver watched this exchange through a live feed. He felt something strange in his chest. These creatures were small. Their ship was weak. They should be screaming and begging. Instead, their captain spoke as if he were talking to an equal. "Destroy them," Kelver ordered. Captain Threll gave the command. The Void Fang opened fire, but the Horizon was already moving. Ben had seen the weapon ports starting to glow. He had guessed what was coming. The ship rolled hard to the left as energy beams cut through the space where they had been. "Lisa, I need more power to engines." Daniel called. Lisa Marino was the chief engineer. She was 40 years old, with gray streaks in her dark hair and grease stains on her uniform. She had kept the Horizon running for 18 months with spare parts and stubbornness. "Already on it," she called back from the engine room. "But this ship was not built for combat, Daniel." "Then we will not fight. We will run." The Horizon dove toward an asteroid field that Ben had spotted on his charts. The Void Fang followed, firing again and again. Several shots hit the small ship. Alarms screamed. Smoke filled the corridors. But the Horizon kept moving. For 3 days, the chase continued. The human ship hid among the asteroids while the alien cruiser hunted. Every time the Void Fang found them, the Horizon would slip away again. Ben learned to predict when the aliens would fire by watching how their ship moved. Lisa found ways to make the engines run faster than they were designed to go. On the second day, Daniel had an idea. "Lisa, can you turn the geological survey laser into a weapon?" Lisa thought about it. "It is not designed for that. But maybe. Give me 6 hours." She did it in 4. The laser was weak compared to the alien weapons, but it was something. That night, when the Void Fang found them again, Daniel gave the order. Aim for their sensor array. The makeshift weapon fired. It was not powerful enough to break through the cruiser's armor, but the sensor array was exposed. The beam hit it directly. Suddenly, the Void Fang was half blind dot by the time the aliens repaired their sensors. The Horizon was gone. Captain Thrall sent a message to Prince Kelver. "The humans have escaped. My ship is damaged. We need repairs." Kelver read the message 3 times. He could not believe what he was seeing. A single exploration ship with no weapons had beaten one of his cruisers. It had not destroyed it, but it had beaten it. It had survived. He ordered Thrall to return to the nearest station. Then he executed him for failure. But as Kelver sat alone in his throne room, he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. It was small and cold, like a seed of ice in his stomach. He did not recognize it at first because it had been so many years since he had experienced it. It was fear. Far away. The Horizon limped through space toward a small human colony called New Portland. Daniel stood on the bridge, looking at the stars. His ship was damaged. His crew was exhausted. But they were alive. "We made it," Maria said softly. Daniel nodded. "We did. But something tells me this is not over. Those aliens will come looking for us. And next time, they will bring more ships." He was right. The story of the Horizon spread through the Velanthari Empire like fire through dry grass. A primitive ship with no weapons had escaped one of their cruisers. The other princes laughed at Kelver. They called him the fool who could not catch explorers. They made jokes about him at their grand dinners. But Empress Veleth did not laugh. She was old, even by Velanthari standards. Her scales had turned silver with age, and her eyes had seen empires rise and fall before her own was born. She sat on the crystal throne of Velantos Prime and demanded to see every recording from the encounter. For 7 days, she watched the humans. She saw how Captain Daniel Ortiz had remained calm when facing death. She saw how his crew had worked together, each one trusting the others with their lives. She saw how the engineer had turned a scientific tool into a weapon in just 4 hours. "This is wrong," she said to her advisors. "Every species we have conquered showed fear when they saw our ships. These creatures did not. They adapted. They learned. They survived." Her advisors did not know what to say. They had never seen the Empress worried before. "Find out everything about these humans," Veleth ordered. "I want to know where they come from. I want to know how many of them there are. I want to know what they are capable of." While the Empire gathered information, the Horizon reached New Portland. New Portland was a small colony on a green world far from Earth. 6,000 humans lived there, farming the land and mining the mountains. They had no warships. They had no army. They had only their hands and their determination. Mayor Claire Ruiz met the horizon at the landing pad. She was a woman of 50, with sun-darkened skin and strong arms from years of working the land. She had built this colony with her own hands. She had survived 2 crop failures, a meteor strike, and a disease that killed 300 people. Nothing scared her anymore. Daniel told her what had happened. Claire listened without speaking. When he finished, she stood quietly for a moment, looking at the sky. "If one ship found us, more will come," she said. "We need to prepare." "How?" Daniel asked. "We have no weapons, no fleet. We are farmers and miners." Claire smiled. It was not a happy smile. "We have something better. We have people who refuse to give up." She called a meeting that night. Every adult in the colony came to the Great Hall. Claire stood before them and told them the truth. Aliens were coming. They wanted to conquer or kill every human on this world. Running was not possible. Surrender meant death or slavery. "What do we do?" Someone called from the crowd. "We fight," Claire said. "Not like soldiers. We do not have weapons for that. We fight like survivors. We make this world so dangerous that they will wish they had never come here." The colonists worked day and night. The miners dug tunnels under the ground, creating a network of caves and passages that stretched for miles. The farmers created traps using their knowledge of the land. The engineers built hidden doors and false walls. The children helped carry supplies into the underground shelters. Dr. Nathan Cruz ran the medical station. He was a quiet man who had left a successful practice on Earth to help colonists on the frontier. He prepared for the wounded he knew would come. He also began studying everything the Horizon crew could tell him about voluntary biology. "Their blood is copper-based, not iron," he said to Daniel one night. "And their scales are sensitive to certain frequencies of sound. Interesting. Can you use that somehow?" Nathan shook his head. "Not yet. But knowledge is power. The more we learn about them, the better our chances." 3 weeks after the Horizon arrived, the Voluntari came. Prince Nether led the attack. He was the youngest of the 7 brothers, eager to prove himself. He brought 5 warships and 2,000 soldiers. He expected to find a frightened colony begging for mercy. Instead, he found silence. The colony appeared empty. Buildings stood abandoned. Fields lay untended. Neither sent his soldiers down to investigate. The first squad walked into a tunnel entrance that collapsed behind them. They spent 2 days trying to dig their way out in total darkness. The second squad found what looked like a supply building. When they opened the door, mining explosives buried under the floor killed all 20 of them. The third squad was attacked by swarms of insects that the colonists had released from broken containment units. The creatures were harmless to humans, but caused terrible allergic reactions in the aliens. Day after day, Nether sent soldiers into the colony. Day after day, they disappeared. They fell into hidden pits. They triggered traps that shot metal spikes from the walls. They breathed in dust that made them sick for weeks. They never saw a single human face. The colonists moved through their tunnels like ghosts. They watched from hidden cameras. They struck and then vanished. They never fought fairly because they knew they could not win a fair fight. Claire Ruiz coordinated everything from a command center deep underground. She had not slept more than 3 hours a night since the invasion began. Her eyes were red and her hands shook from exhaustion. But she would not stop. "How many did we get today?" she asked. 62 confirmed, said her assistant. "They are learning to avoid the obvious traps now. Then we make less obvious traps." After 4 days, Prince Nether had lost 2,000 soldiers. His 5 warships still floated in orbit, untouched and useless. He could destroy the entire planet from space, but the Empress had ordered him to capture it intact. She wanted to study these humans. She wanted to understand them. Neither stood on the bridge of his flagship and felt something he had never felt before. It was like ice in his blood. His soldiers were afraid to go back down to the surface. They whispered about demons in the dark. They talked about the humans as if they were monsters instead of small, soft creatures. "We are leaving," Neither announced. "This planet is not worth the cost." His officers stared at him in shock. A Voluntary prince did not retreat. It was unthinkable. "My prince, if we leave, your brothers will. My brothers can fight these creatures themselves if they want this world so badly," Neither snapped. "I will not waste more lives on farmers who fight like nightmares." The fleet withdrew. From the tunnels of New Portland, 6,000 colonists watched the alien ships fly away. They did not cheer. They were too tired for that. But they smiled. Daniel found Claire sitting alone in the command center, staring at the screens. "We did it," he said. Claire shook her head. "We won a battle. The war has just begun. They will come back. More of them, angrier." She looked at Daniel with eyes that had seen too much. "We need to warn the other colonies. Every human settlement in this part of space needs to know what we learned here. We cannot beat them in a fight, but we can make them bleed. We can make them afraid. And maybe, if we can hold on long enough, they will decide we are not worth conquering." Daniel nodded. "I will take the horizon. We will spread the word." "Tell them to prepare," Claire said. "Tell them to dig deep and wait. Tell them that humans do not surrender. We survive. It is what we have always done." That night, the Horizon lifted off from New Portland, carrying a message that would change the galaxy forever. Prince Neither returned to the Empire in shame. His army was gone. His soldiers spoke of horrors in the dark. The other princes no longer laughed. They watched him with cold eyes and wondered if they would have done any better. Empress Valeth summoned all 7 of her sons to the throne world. The Great Hall of the Lantos Prime was a cathedral of crystal and light, built to show the power of the Empire. The 7 princes stood before their mother's throne, each one a ruler of 100 worlds. Yet now they looked small. "Explain," the Empress said. Her voice was soft, but it carried like thunder. Neither stepped forward. His scales had lost their shine. "The humans do not fight like any species we have known. They hide in the ground. They use tricks and traps. They never face us directly. It is impossible to defeat an enemy you cannot see." "Impossible?" Prince Kelver stepped forward, his eyes burning. "Nothing is impossible. You are weak, brother. You should have burned that world from orbit." "Your orders said to capture it intact," Neither replied. "My orders were a mistake. These creatures are vermin. We do not capture vermin. We exterminate them." Prince Rethon, the eldest brother, raised his hand for silence. He was the most respected of the 7, known for his wisdom and caution. "Brother, think carefully. We have conquered 47 species in our history. All of them surrendered when they saw our power. These humans have no fleet, no empire, no weapons worth mentioning. Yet they fight. Does that not concern you?" "It concerns me that we have spent so much time talking about creatures that live in dirt," Kelver said. Empress Veleth leaned forward. Her yellow eyes moved from sun to sun. "I have studied these humans. They are fascinating. Their bodies are weak, but their minds are strange. They do not experience fear the way we do." "All creatures feel fear," Kelver said. "Yes, but for us, fear is a signal to stop. Our bodies shut down when we experience too much stress. It is how our species protects itself. But humans are different. Fear makes them more dangerous, not less. They function in terror. They thrive in crisis. They have been fighting for survival on their homeworld for hundreds of thousands of years. War is in their blood. The princes were silent. This was not what they wanted to hear. "What do you suggest, Mother?" Rethan asked. "I do not know yet. That is why I have gathered you here. We must decide together what to do about this new species." The debate lasted 3 days. Calver wanted total war. Burn every human world. Leave nothing alive. It did not matter how clever they were if there was no one left to be clever. Rethan counseled patience. They should study the humans more. Learn their weaknesses. Find a way to defeat them without losing more soldiers to traps and ambushes. Neither said nothing. He sat in the corner and stared at the wall. His mind kept returning to the tunnels of New Portland, to the darkness where his soldiers had screamed and died without ever seeing their killers. The other 4 princes argued among themselves. Some supported Calver. Some supported Rethan. None of them could agree. While the princes debated, the horizon carried its message across human space. Daniel Ortiz visited 12 colonies in 3 months. At each one, he told the story of New Portland. He explained how ordinary people had defeated a superior enemy through cleverness and determination. He shared everything they had learned about voluntary biology and tactics. Dr. Nathan Cruz had sent a report with him. It contained his research on the aliens, their blood chemistry, their sensory systems. Most importantly, their weakness to prolonged stress. They cannot handle long fear, Daniel explained to colony leaders. Their bodies fail when they are afraid for too long. But humans can be afraid for years and keep going. That is our advantage. Claire Ruiz sent her own message. Do not surrender. Do not make it quick. Make them hunt for you. Make them fear the dark. Make every world they touch a nightmare. And wait. If we can last long enough, they will break before we do. 12 colonies received the message. 11 began preparing immediately. They dug tunnels. They built traps. They trained their people to fight in ways the aliens would never expect. The 12th colony did not prepare. Its governor believed the aliens would leave them alone if they did not resist. He was wrong. Prince Calver arrived at that colony with his fleet. He offered them a choice, surrender or die. The governor chose surrender. Calver accepted their surrender. Then he burned the entire planet anyway. Let this be a lesson, he announced. Humans who submit will still be destroyed. There is no mercy for this species. There is only fire. He thought this would frighten the other colonies into giving up. He was wrong about that too. When the other colonies heard what had happened, they did not despair. They became angry. If surrender meant death, then there was no reason not to fight. If the aliens would burn them anyway, then they would make the Empire pay for every inch of ground. Back on Volantos Prime, Empress Velith received reports from across the frontier. Human colonies were going silent, not because they had been destroyed, but because they were hiding, preparing, waiting. She called Rethan to her private chambers. You were right to counsel caution, she said. Calver's actions have made things worse. Now these humans have nothing to lose. What would you have me do, Mother? Watch, learn, find the weakness we have not yet seen. There must be something. No species is perfect. Rethan bowed. And Calver? Let him burn worlds. It keeps him busy. But when the time comes, we will need a different approach. That night, Rethan sat in his study and read Nathan Cruz's medical report, which his spies had intercepted. The human doctor had figured out the voluntary weakness in just a few weeks. That speed impressed him. It also terrified him. He began to understand something. The voluntary had built their empire on the assumption that they were superior, stronger, smarter, better in every way. But these humans did not accept that assumption. They looked at the Empire and saw only a problem to be solved. And they were very good at solving problems. Rytham put down the report and stared out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, on small worlds orbiting distant suns, humans were preparing for war. Not the kind of war the Velanthari knew. Not battles between fleets. Something older. Something more primal. A war of survival. A war of attrition. A war that would not end until one species or the other was broken. For the first time in his long life, Prince Rethan wondered if his people would be the ones to break first. The war that followed was unlike anything the Velanthari had ever known. Human colonies did not build warships. They did not form armies. They did not fight in any way the aliens expected. Instead, they became shadows. On the forest world of Ericsson's Landing, 800 colonists vanished into the wilderness when the alien ships arrived. The Velanthari sent 10,000 soldiers to find them. For 2 years, those soldiers searched. The forests of Ericsson's Landing were old and deep. Trees grew so tall that sunlight barely reached the ground. The colonists knew every path, every stream, every hiding place. They had lived there for 50 years. The aliens had been there for 2 days. Commander Veth was in charge of the occupation. He was a proud officer who had never failed a mission. After 6 months on Ericsson's Landing, he could not sleep anymore. Every night, something happened. A patrol would disappear. A supply depot would explode. Strange sounds would echo through the forest. Sounds that might be birds, or might be humans calling to each other in codes the aliens could not understand. "We should burn this forest," Veth told his officers. "Our orders are to capture the colony intact," they reminded him. "There is nothing to capture. There is only the forest and the things that hide in it." One morning, Veth woke to find a message carved into the wall of his headquarters. It said, "We are watching." No one knew how the humans had gotten inside. No one knew when they had left. Security recordings showed nothing but shadows. Veth requested permission to withdraw. It was denied. He was told to continue the mission. After 8 months, his soldiers began refusing to enter the forest. They said they would rather be executed than go back into those trees. Veth could not blame them. He felt the same way. The humans never attacked in large groups. They struck once or twice, killed a few soldiers, and disappeared before anyone could fight back. They poisoned water supplies. They put traps on roads. They made the aliens afraid of every sound and every shadow. On the industrial moon of Carpenter Station, the occupation went differently. The colonists there were factory workers, not hunters. They could not hide in forests because there were no forests. So they did something else. When the aliens took over the factories, the workers pretended to cooperate. They built ships for the Velanthari fleet. They worked hard. They never complained. The alien commanders were pleased. Finally, humans who understood their place. But the workers were not loyal. They were patient. Lavra Vance was a welding supervisor. She had worked in the factories for 22 years. She knew every system, every process, every weakness. When the aliens ordered her team to build fighter ships, she smiled and said yes. For 6 months, her team built ships. Beautiful ships. Ships that passed every inspection. Ships that were delivered to the fleet with perfect documentation. Then the ships started failing. It happened slowly at first. A navigation system would glitch. An engine would run too hot. The problems were small, easy to explain as accidents or manufacturing errors. The aliens blamed their own engineers and continued using the ships. 3 months later, a Velanthari cruiser was destroyed when its power core exploded during a routine patrol. Investigation showed that the core had been sabotaged at the factory. Small changes, invisible to inspectors, had caused it to fail at exactly the wrong moment. Over the next year, 47 ships built on Carpenter Station suffered catastrophic failures. Some exploded. Some lost life support. Some simply stopped working in the middle of space and drifted until their crews died of starvation. The aliens eventually figured out what was happening. They executed every human worker and replaced them with voluntary engineers. But by then, the damage was done. The fleet no longer trusted any equipment that humans had touched. Lara Vance was among those executed. Before she died, she smiled at her captors. Was it worth it? The commander asked her. Yes, she said. Every moment. On the ocean world of Monterey, the humans had an advantage the aliens had not expected. Monterey was 90% water. The colonists had built underwater habitats decades ago. When the invasion came, they simply sank beneath the waves. The voluntary had never fought an underwater war. Their ships could not submerge. Their soldiers could not breathe below the surface without special equipment. The ocean was vast and dark, and full of things they could not see. Captain Samuel Davis led the Monterey Resistance. He had been a fisherman before the war. Now he was something else. His people used fishing boats converted into attack craft. They used underwater drones to spy on the alien positions. They used harpoon guns and explosive charges and their knowledge of the currents. For 3 years, the aliens tried to conquer Monterey. They bombed the surface. They tried to poison the water. They sent specially equipped soldiers into the depths. Nothing worked. The ocean was too big, and the humans knew it too well. Eventually, Prince Nether ordered the occupation of Monterey to end. His officers argued with him. They said it would look like another failure. It is a failure, Nether said quietly. And if we keep trying, we will lose more soldiers for nothing. Let the humans have their ocean. There are other worlds. But the other worlds were the same. Every colony the voluntary tried to hold became a trap. Every garrison lived in constant fear. Every soldier knew that they might not survive until morning. Back on Valanthos Prime, the princes were falling apart. Prince Rethon pulled his forces back from 3 systems. He announced that the humans in those areas were no longer a priority. His brothers accused him of cowardice. He did not argue. He simply showed them the casualty reports. Prince Nether's fleet mutinied after 6 months of garrison duty on a world where human guerrillas attacked every night. The soldiers refused to serve. Some turned their weapons on their own officers. Nether barely escaped with his life. Prince Calver continued his campaign of destruction. He burned world after world, but each time he left, the humans simply moved to another system. They had hidden communication relays that warned colonies when his fleet was coming. By the time he arrived, the people were gone. He burned empty buildings and called it victory. Everyone knew it was not. Empress Velith watched her empire begin to crack. Her sons could not agree on anything. Her armies were exhausted. Her people were starting to ask questions that had never been asked before. Could the empire fall? Was it possible that these small, soft creatures from a distant world could bring down 12,000 years of glory? The Empress did not know. For the first time in her long life, she did not know. Daniel Ortiz received reports from across human space. He read about Ericsson's landing in Carpenter Station and Monterey. He read about colonies that had held out for years against impossible odds. He read about ordinary people who had become heroes. He sat in his cabin on the horizon and felt tired. So very tired Lisa Marino found him there late one night. She sat down beside him and said nothing for a long time. How long can we keep this up? She finally asked. Daniel looked at the stars through his window. Somewhere out there, humans were fighting and dying and refusing to give up. Longer than they can, he said. That is all we need. longer than they can. The end of the war came not with a great battle, but with a quiet collapse. 5 years had passed since the horizon first met the Voluntari. 5 years of hiding and fighting and refusing to die. The human colonies were scarred, but alive. The Voluntari Empire was crumbling. Empress Valith died in the 3rd year of the war. The doctors said it was age, but everyone knew the truth. The stress had killed her. Her body, like all Voluntari bodies, could not handle the constant fear and anxiety. She had watched her empire begin to fall, and the watching had destroyed her. After her death, the 7 princes split into factions. Kelver wanted to continue the war until every human was dead. Neither wanted to retreat and pretend humans did not exist. The others argued among themselves, each one trying to grab power while the empire burned around them. Prince Rethon watched his brothers tear themselves apart and knew that something had to change. He had spent 5 years studying humans. He had read their history, their literature, their science. He had learned things about them that no other Voluntari knew. And he had come to a conclusion that would have been unthinkable to his ancestors. Humans could not be conquered. Not because they were stronger, not because they had better weapons, but because they simply would not stay beaten. No matter how many times they were knocked down, they got back up. No matter how hopeless the situation, they kept fighting. It was not logical. It was not rational. It was something deeper than that. Rethon sent a secret message through hidden channels. It took 3 months to reach its destination. When Daniel Ortiz read it, he almost did not believe what he was seeing. The eldest prince of the Voluntari Empire was asking for peace. They met on a neutral station in empty space, far from any colony or fleet. Daniel came with a small crew. Rethon came alone. When they sat down across from each other, neither spoke for a long moment. Rethon looked at the human captain. He saw a tired man with gray hair and worn uniform. This was the creature who had started the war. This was the person who had shown his empire that it was not invincible. "You have broken us," Rethon said finally. "Not with strength. With endurance. We cannot understand a species that thrives in fear." Daniel shook his head. "We do not thrive in it. We just survive it. We have been doing that since before we had fire. How? How do you keep going when everything seems lost?" Daniel thought about the question. He thought about the colonists of New Portland, who had fought from tunnels with farming tools. He thought about Laura Vance, who had smiled before her execution. He thought about all the ordinary people who had become extraordinary because they had no other choice. "We do not have a choice," he said. "Giving up is not in our nature. We are descended from creatures who ran from predators, who starved through winters, who fought each other for scraps of food. Every human alive today is the child of survivors going back millions of years. It is in our blood." Rethon nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is what makes you so dangerous." They talked for hours. Rethon proposed a ceasefire. Human space would be recognized as independent. A neutral zone would be established between their territories. In exchange, he asked only one thing: stop making us afraid. The Treaty of Silent Stars was signed 3 months later. The Voluntari withdrew from all human-occupied systems. They gave up 40 light-years of territory that they had once claimed. In exchange, humans agreed to stay within their borders and not expand toward the Empire. Not everyone was happy. Prince Kelver called his brother a traitor and swore revenge. But Kelver's fleet had been worn down by years of fighting ghosts. His soldiers were broken. His ships were damaged. When he tried to rally support for continuing the war, no one answered. The empire that had ruled the stars for 12,000 years turned inward and tried to heal. It would never be the same. Too many had died. Too much had been lost. And always in the back of every Voluntari mind, There was the memory of what humans had done to them. On New Portland, Claire Ruiz was elected governor of the newly formed Human Colonial Alliance. She had led her people through 5 years of war. Now she had to lead them through peace. Daniel came to see her before he left. "They are offering me a medal," he told her. "And a title. Admiral Ortiz. Can you imagine?" Claire smiled. "You deserve it. I do not want it. I want to go back to exploring. That is all I ever wanted." She understood. She gave him a new ship, the Horizon 2, built in the shipyards that humans had constructed during the war. It was faster and stronger than the original, but it still had no weapons. It was not a warship. It was an explorer. Lisa Marino and Ben Castellan joined him, along with new crew members. Young people who had grown up during the war and wanted to see what else was out there. People who believed that humanity's future lay not in fighting, but in discovering. The day they launched, thousands of people came to watch. They stood on the fields of New Portland and looked up at the sky. They cheered as the ship rose through the atmosphere and disappeared into the stars. Daniel stood on the bridge and watched the planet grow smaller behind them. He thought about everything that had happened. The battles, the losses, the fear. But he also thought about the courage he had seen in ordinary people. The determination. The refusal to give up no matter what. Where do we go now? Ben asked from his station. Daniel looked at the star map. It showed the known galaxy, with human space marked in one corner and voluntary space in another. Beyond that, there was only the unknown. Billions of stars that no one had ever visited. Worlds that no one had ever seen. "We go forward," Daniel said. "Same as always." Lisa came to stand beside him. "Do you think we will find other aliens out there? Besides the voluntary?" "Probably. The galaxy is a big place. What if they are hostile too?" Daniel thought about the question. He thought about all the humans who had fought and died in the war. He thought about Claire Ruiz and Lara Vance and Samuel Davis and all the others who had refused to surrender. He thought about the simple truth that the voluntary had never understood. Humans were not special because they were strong. They were not special because they were smart. They were special because they never stopped trying. No matter how bad things got, no matter how hopeless the situation seemed, they kept going. They adapted. They survived. They found a way. "Then we will deal with it," he said. "Same as always. We will find a way." The Horizon 2 jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving known space behind. Ahead of them lay the unknown. Ahead of them lay the unknown. Behind them lay a galaxy that would never forget what humanity had done. The great Voluntary Empire, rulers of the stars for 12,000 years, had been brought low by farmers and fishermen and factory workers. Not by armies, not by weapons, just by ordinary people who refused to stay beaten. And somewhere in the vastness of space, as the Horizon 2 raced toward new horizons, Daniel Ortiz smiled. They had survived. Against all odds, against an empire that could have crushed them, they had survived. It was what humans had always done. It was what they would always do, and the stars had learned to respect them for it.